It's time for Ogre School. Let's get started. Today's video is sponsored by Effordent Denture Cleaner, the perfect cleaner for all of my students' dentures. This lesson is introducing one of the key parts of the rhetorical situation, which is audience. As always, I'm going to go quick and assume that you are smart enough to rewind and rewatch anything you didn't understand the first time. So, the definition of audience is obvious. It's the person or group being addressed. But, just being able to identify them is not good enough. No. What you need to do is be able to explain how the audience affected the rhetorical choices the author makes. So that is what we are mostly focusing on today. Before we get into it, here is a very important note. When we talk about the audience of a text, we are talking about the intended audience. Sometimes students assume that since they are reading a text that they are the audience. Usually they are not. It is important that when you discuss the audience, you don't make this mistake. Pretty much we only care about who the author is trying to talk to, even if other people have also read or heard it. So, when you analyze a text, you should always be looking for ways the author is trying to manipulate the audience. How are they playing on their emotions? How are they persuading them? How are they tricking them? Etc. All of that is just another way of saying we are looking for rhetorical choices the author makes specifically to impact their audience in some way. There are some common examples that I probably don't even need to give you examples of. Guilt trips, for instance. Your parents probably try to guilt trip you into doing more chores around the house. They try to make you, the audience in this case, feel a specific emotion, guilt, as a way to manipulate you into doing what they want. And if they don't do that, can we please trade parents? My mom is always guilt tripping me into cleaning the basement. I mean my room. Another common example is an author trying to connect with an audience. A politician will often tell stories that make them sound like ordinary people, and they'll say "we" a lot, and probably mention something about the city or state they're currently in. All of this is trying to make the audience feel connected to them so that they get their vote. These are the sorts of tricks that can work on almost anyone. They are important to notice when we look at a text and important to be able to explain. And obviously, there are a lot more tricks than the ones I just mentioned, but you don't want this to be a several hour-long video, right? Of course, not all tricks work on all audiences. Clever authors need to think about what kind of person or people make up their audience. I'm going to use an old comic strip to highlight what I mean. This is the story of a boy, Jason, who has just read about the newest video game and really wants to get it. He is going to try to get his audience excited and pumped about the game by providing them details designed to make them want the game. Let's look at his pitch. Duke Quakem, asks his audience. It's that computer game that had all the senators up in arms. Anyway, the Jupiter 64 version is going to be even nastier, with 24 new weapons, including something called a Cuisinart ray. Okay. He's given evidence about why this version will be even better than old versions. Surely that will get the audience excited. Think about it. Duke Quakem on a 25-inch screen. This comic is a little old, okay? I'm old, okay? I get it, okay? Why can't I just teach in peace? With the screams and gunfire pumping through our home stereo, right here in the family room, where everyone can see me play. I bet he grows up to be a Twitch streamer. Day and night, all summer long? The audience replies, Jason, we don't have a Jupiter 64 game station. Here comes the clever part. Here's where all that getting the audience pumped for the game really pays off. I know. But doesn't this just make you want to run right out and buy us one? So we see how this works. He tries to manipulate the audience by hyping them up, making them really excited and wanting the game. He provides evidence to hype them up. This hype is supposed to make them run out and get the game system. So what do you think? Did it work? Well, did you notice how I hid who the audience was? See? I imagine this would work on some people. It might work on some of you depending on what you like in a video game. But do you think it works on Jason's mom here? Check out the facial expression. Do you think she gets hyped at the idea of her son monopolizing the family room all day long with loud screams echoing throughout the house? Is she excited at the variety of new weapons? No. No, she is not. If it's any consolation, though, it seemed to have worked on Marcus. Too bad he's also a broke kid. This brings me to a very important point. Not every rhetorical strategy will work on every audience. Authors often target specific things about their specific audience. They pick things that will work on one audience, even if it won't work on another. This means they have to think about who their audience actually is. When analyzing a text, the quickest way to look smart and garner praise is to point out the specifics of them doing this. So, when I say choices based on things about their audience, what kind of things do I mean? Ultimately, the answer is anything. Anything at all about the audience that the author tries to exploit counts. But there are a couple of very common categories, so let's talk about some of these. Thing number one, different audiences have different interests and needs.
Why do you disturb my slumber?
Mr. Dracula, sir, I am here to offer you a deal on this amazing product. Our new tanning lotion allows you to absorb 50% more of the sun rays so you can brown faster than ever. Imagine it, sir, you, stretched out in the sun, the light bouncing on your skin, you wearing nothing but your shorts, or even... Picture your skin absorbing all that sun. Isn't that everything you've ever dreamed of? Now, please don't tell my boss, but I'm prepared right now to offer you 3 bottles for the low discount price of just $7.99. So, how many can I put you down for?
Yeah, good authors pay attention to what their audience actually needs and is interested in. When Nintendo came out with their Wii U, their advertising was aimed at kids, and frankly, it did not sell well. Here's an example.
With Wii U, we can play Super Mario 3D World. Find secrets with the Wii U gamepad.
Notice how the smart kids are smarter than their parents? A common thing used to appeal to kids because they love the idea. When they came out with their next console, the Switch, they wanted to appeal to a different demographic, older teens and younger adults. You know, people who have lives, who have work or school, and whose entertainment has to work around those facts. Notice how the commercial focuses on the needs of this audience by emphasizing the ways it could fit into their busy life and be a part of their social life. I'm going to skip around a bit to show the highlights.
From the moment we met, you could see that I was filled with desire to change one thing, so be yourself. Maybe a rambling man, but I can't be your one if you allow it. You're a mystery.
Nintendo knew this specific audience wanted and needed something that could fit around a busy lifestyle, so they showed them how it could. Smart. This is knowing what your audience wants and needs and choosing to focus on that. All right, let's move on to thing number 2. Different audiences have different beliefs. Another thing that authors can use to manipulate an audience is the audience's beliefs. Now, when I say beliefs, your first thought might be religion, and that is definitely part of it. However, that is not all that I mean. It can also be what they believe about how the world works, or what is good or bad. Let's look at some examples.
Hello. I'm here to convince your atheist organization to join me in my fight against the sale of the evil condiment mayonnaise. Only mustard! Only mustard! Remember in the Bible when Paul went around preaching and converting people to his cause? Well, just like him, I feel compelled to spread, get it, my message. So yeah,
What is he doing?
Oh, no. This did not happen.
Well, that was never going to work, was it? Now, don't get me wrong, though. Many authors use biblical examples to great effect. The problem was not the example, it was using that example for that specific audience. In his letter from Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King Jr. also compares himself to the Apostle Paul. Of course, in that letter, he was writing to a group of Christian pastors, so it was a great choice at that time. The difference is who the audience was. Here's an example of using an audience's beliefs to effectively communicate your message. Get it? No? Let me give you some context. This is created when Obamacare was being debated. The authors of this image are against Obamacare and are trying to make it seem bad. So why did the author put in things about the IRS and the DMV? Those things have absolutely nothing to do with Obamacare. The answer to that question is that they put those things in because, specifically, what their audience believes. So, who is that audience? And what do they believe? Well, it was published on this website that loudly proclaims that government fails, and which says that the website members have a desire for less government. So, the intended audience of this image is people who already believe that all government is bad and makes things worse. Now, look at the image again. This compares Obamacare to several government programs. Since the audience already believes that government is bad, this makes Obamacare look bad to them. This only works because of this specific audience's belief about government. For this next example, take a minute to think about the last time you followed your parents' advice on something important. Think about what the advice was and whether or not you liked how things worked out. In addition to different wants, needs, and beliefs, different audiences also have different experiences. Imagine your parents came and said, "Remember the last time we gave you advice? You should listen to us again." Would that make you more or less likely to listen to their ideas? I imagine different students will have different answers. If last time worked out well for you, then this might be a good way for them to get you to listen to them. On the other hand, if you feel like you had a bad experience, then this would be a horrible way to get your trust. See, it depends on the experiences you have had, so what works on you might not work on your friend. Thing number 3. Different audiences have different experiences. Here's an example of this very technique. Abigail Adams is trying to get her son to listen to her advice. In this letter, she starts by talking about something in the past. Notice how she could bring up the fact that he went along with her advice and that it worked out well for him. Therefore, she can use this experience as a way to persuade him to listen to her again. This would only work on someone who has had that exact experience. She chose her technique based on the audience's experience. So, here is a big summary before we talk about how to write about audience. Each audience has its own values, needs, desires, beliefs, and experiences. Noticing how the author uses those to their advantage is the key to success. The last thing I want to talk about is what to actually write on the paper. Let's talk specifically about what claim to make. When you are writing about rhetorical choices, you really need to include the following in some way: the author who is making the rhetorical choice, the audience they are making it for, and the actual choices the author makes. So, here's an example. Nintendo appeals to a young adult audience by showing images of their product being used in situations from their lifestyle to convince them the product is a good fit for them. Note, this is not a complete answer, this is just a claim. If you were writing an essay, you would follow this up with specific evidence and commentary. I'll do that in the next example. Claim. Abigail Adams reminds her son of the times when trusting her in the past had worked out in order to make him more inclined to listen to him this time. And here it is, followed by evidence and commentary. Okay guys, time to wrap up this video with a quick word from our sponsor. This video was sponsored by Effordent, the ideal product to keep your dentures clean, white, and bacteria-free. I recommend it to all of my students who have dentures. If you're asking, do any of your students even have dentures? Why would you advertise this to teenagers? Then you are not alone. I asked Effordent, and they muttered something about building brand loyalty. So, remember this when you are 70 and need to clean your dentures? Yay, Effordent. Thanks for wasting your money.